Hey Sis, it's a weekly shakedown of the binary walls around us.
Breaking it out and building a bridge.
Checking our biases with empathy and humility and questioning the status quo.
It's about building allyship that is intentional and confident.
My name's Cynthia and I use she, her pronouns, and welcome back to another episode of Hey Sis. We're getting close to the holidays. How are you doing, Isaac, on your Christmas decor? Have you decked the halls?
Pretty much, yeah. It was pretty immediately after Remembrance Day. We got everything all decked up, as people like to say. Christmas trees up, all that fun stuff. What about yourself?
Yeah, so you're one of those. I'm not allowed until like December 1st. We gotta hold off, but we had that big snowstorm, our first snowstorm of the winter here in Halifax last night. So we dipped out and grabbed our tree. And for the first time ever, I was allowed to take control of the tree choosing. And we got one of the long needled pine trees this year instead of the short needled fir. So I'm super excited. I've just heard that they're a little bit harder to decorate because the branch is way down. So you got to use the lighter balls, and that, which is actually nice because that goes with my line of decor. The kids might not be quite as happy, but we'll see. They're teenagers now, so.
Well, I was going to say they're getting older, so they get to dictate less. Fortunately, in my house, my husband's definitely the director of the Christmas operations, so I get little input here and there, but it's usually just the extent of maybe a small bird angled differently or an ornament being spun around. That's usually about it.
Right. Well, it's that's where the democratic process really gets challenged, I think.
Exactly. The holiday season, it's either that or IKEA furniture. So
speaking of democratic process, like how crazy was it this past week? We had some really good news across Canada where the bill to ban conversion therapy was just finally passed, and the consent ceremony was yesterday.
Yeah, so exciting news all across the board. It was incredible watching how they fast tracked it. And it just felt like night and day. You woke up one morning and they were talking about it in Senate, and then the next morning it was passed. So really happy to hear though that it was unanimous. And I even saw a couple articles saying that Liberal Party members walked across the aisle and hugged some of their conservative counterparts. So that was really exciting to see.
Yeah, I think it's really significant, and it's a good end, because I think we were all pretty deflated when the election was called last fall, and we didn't know what was going to happen. So some great news.
Yeah, there was so much discussions that it was going to be put back in the back burner and was going to have to be a discussion for another day. But I'm happy to hear that most folks are at the point where we realize we need to do something about this, and there wasn't much refusal to that. So.
Exactly, moving it all forward. So and we're approaching the holiday season. Oh, I'll just say, like, if anybody wants, we did do a couple episodes on the bill to ban conversion therapy. Had several different guests on in the past couple seasons, so you can go back and check out those if you're interested. But today it's all about decking the holidays with festive queer music.
So today we're getting in the gay and merry holiday season with Kenny Fitzpatrick, the host of Q Review. And to our long-term listeners, you may remember some of our very first few podcasts. And one of them we did with Kenny in late 2020, where we talked about all things queer music in general. But in this episode in particular, we're going to be into the holiday spirit with some holiday music produced by 2S LGBTQ+ artists with the help of Q Review's new Queer Holiday Cheers playlist on Spotify.
Yeah, and we're going to put a link in the show notes at the end so that you can check out the entire list. There's way too many songs that we can touch on all today, but you can check it out and build your own, or incorporate some of your favorite songs into your holiday playlist, and get gay, merry, and bright this holiday season.
Yeah.
What? These are crazy times. We're into crazy times. That's all right. Let's get crazy.
Yeah, exactly. When you think of queer people, and more importantly, when you think of queer music, you don't think of holiday music, which is typically very white, Christian, Catholic, or whatever, like very religious. I can't say strictly Catholic, because we've been seeing more and more non-Catholic religions coming to the forefront with music, which is really, really great to see. Even better when those people are queer.
Welcome back, Kenny. It's great to have you back on the podcast 1 year later and festive music on the forefront.
Yeah. It's an area of music that we have not done a very deep dive on. For a few different reasons. And I think that it's time to peel back the layers, because there's a lot of holiday music that is very non-traditional, but then there are some of the traditions that are being shaken up very nicely by, LGBT artists all around the world in different languages. And it's great to see that, because some of how they're approaching it is very different than what we're used to. And I kind of dig that. I dig it a lot, to be honest.
I love that. And you know what? And I can't wait for you to dive in and tell us about it, because Isaac and I were chatting and it was kind of the time like everyone was kicking off the typical festive Christmas radio music. And I'm like so bored with it. And I'm like, isn't there anything different? And then it just like, I'm like, what's Kenny up to? Like there must be good queer Christmas music out there. And I think we asked the question, like, is there country queer Christmas music? And you're
all
like,
I can say is you did not disappoint. You did not disappoint.
There's every range that's out there. There is some, and I guess what people don't understand in some respect is that, when you think about the holidays, not everybody has had the same experience. Even if you're in the same country, you don't have the same experience, because you don't know what the family life is like. You don't know if it's your born family, your chosen family. You don't know what things are like. So for me growing up, I'm older, so everything was so mournful. It was just so heavy. It was like Burl Ives and these voices, these old men that sang very, very morosely. To me, it wasn't very, holly jolly. It always had a tone of, I don't know if it was religion or just a traditional sound that really didn't work for me, because I was a rock and roll kid and I was a dance kid and I wanted some of that stuff. And then suddenly there was the Star Wars anthem Christmas thing. And I was like, yeah, that's my jam. But, people think that Christmas music or holiday music is, it's interchangeable, but it's not, because there's a lot that comes along with it. And when you think about, I'll even say visually, the holidays are represented in a way that is quite homogenous. It is a very North Americanized, very Western world style of existence. Even when it comes down to British, although I will say in the UK, they are much better at representing visually than we've ever been in North America. But, you think about it. If you think about what, the loved ones or people kind of together, rarely have you seen a holiday same-sex or, interracial or, different gender expression kind of experience through the holidays. So what are those individuals looking for? And what will they create when given the opportunity? Mm-hmm. And the truth is, they'll create crazy, but then they'll create such traditional sounds, but coming from a completely different place, because their stories are very different, that you take a step back a bit. I love Adele. Listen, new Adele is out. God love her. It's good. Yay, Adele. But those voices exist in other communities as well. And when they sing, when you hear an "Oh Holy Night" from somebody who's coming from such a place of struggle and pain, and you get it. It's different. John Legend, I had this conversation. John Legend's a really great example. How often do you hear John Legend on the radio, his Christmas music? Never. Why? I think because it doesn't resonate the same way that we have force-fed people holiday music, because it's from a Black man and it's coming from, it's original and it's coming from a different place that we as a group maybe don't connect with as much. Sorry.
No, I'm thinking I have to pull that up because
I,
I actually probably haven't even heard any John Legend Christmas music. But why don't we like, so if we were to highlight a song first that we would play a little bit of here, you mentioned Oh Holy Night. Was it by a particular artist? Because I think there are a couple of Oh Holy Night renditions on your playlist.
there is, and the one that I've heard most recently is Brandi Carlile, who I mean, I adore Brandi Carlile not only as a person and how she, you know, presents herself and her family and how she's tackling, you know, music, but just also how she's been changing, you know, the face of Americana and, you know, that world. But she's also someone who's, you know, who is coming from a place. Her story is, you know, it's rich in terms of, you know, dealing with music.
The thrill of hope, a weary world rejoices for yonder parade, a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angel voices.
For her to say, okay, I'm going to take on a classic, which is, you know, typically not something that, I guess, because Oh Holy Night has the word holy in it, and sometimes it's related in religiously, we automatically think that, you know, somebody who's from the LGBT community will kind of be like, no, X that out. But they also grew up on those songs, but they mean something different to them. And now it's being, you know, driven from her own experiences as, you know, a woman with a same-sex partner, with children, who's had to fight in the music industry, who's been told no a lot of times, completely changes the frame of reference when somebody sings something, you know, that's important to them.
Because yeah, most people, like when they, like even when I was listening to these songs, like I was like, I've heard this before, usually on TikTok, mind you. And there's one in particular that I'll bring up at some point, maybe here in a second, that I've definitely heard on TikTok. But yeah, and I was like, oh, I didn't know they were queer. And then, you know, you do the deep dive and you start searching up their names. And you're like, oh my goodness, like, you know, this is this person. But the one song in particular, Oh Hanukkah by
Kayla Diamond.
Yes, yeah, I've heard that all over TikTok, and I'm surprised it doesn't have a lot of listens on Spotify. I saw it and I was like, why isn't this listened to more? But I have had that stuck in my head for at least the past week.
Hanukkah, we light the menorah. Let's have a party, we'll all dance the horror. Pull up to the table, you're in for a treat. No matter where you come from, you'll always have a seat. Don't forget your hard times, 'cause that's what makes you wanna fight for your love.
But yeah, do you have any insights on them?
Well, first of all, Kayla is phenomenal. She's a Canadian artist, and she's in Montreal right now. She has created, I think Kayla's, you know, someone who truly deserves a lot more airplay. I think she's so much fun to talk to. She's great, but just her own music, I think she's that person who's now coming around, you know, into herself a little bit more, where she's looking at herself and she hasn't seen a lot of female producers out there. She's now producing herself and learning to produce more. You know, she's been that artist that's been told to, you know, tart yourself, not necessarily tart, but you know what I mean? Like to, you know, sexualize yourself up. And, you know, she's married and she got married in COVID. Oh, her story they did a fantastic job. But I was just like, oh, that must've been frustrating. But, you know, I think that, you know, bringing in what you know from your religion and, you know, tackling it that way, we don't hear a lot of Jewish holiday Hanukkah music. And it's because we again assume everybody just is into the Christmas mode of the holidays. And it kind of gets, you know, you often don't hear a Kwanzaa or somebody singing about that, right? Like there's others, I think between in December leading up to December 25th, there's something like, I don't know, 18 different holidays celebrated. So there's a lot that's going on there. And I think that, you know, as an artist tends to, you know, get their feet underneath them and get some support behind them and get that confidence going and really starts to drive themselves and who they are as a person, a full person. They want to see themselves and they want to represent themselves in their music in all different facets. And I think it's just something that we're not used to, or maybe we just haven't put enough of a spotlight on it to talk about. And I think that that's where we do some of these artists a disservice by, you know, just passing it off or whatnot. But that song's gold. That, you know, it's a fantastic song, and she's a fantastic artist. And I think that what that does for somebody who doesn't hear themselves represented, or you know, what their holidays are like, that's a big piece of some you know, community's holiday season. So now it's kind of like, yeah, she's putting a stamp out there on it, and as well she should.
And she's owning it. Like it's a
Completely.
really great, powerful song, and a lot of people are kind of like, you know, side-eyeing it, but it's very strong. Like it reminds me of kind of like the self-empowerment, especially when she speaks or they speak, I apologize, I'm not too sure pronouns, but when they speak Hebrew in it, like you never hear that. And it's very like, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, well, that's another, you know, language in itself is another element in music that doesn't get touched on a lot. We tend to, again, westernize things and say, oh, you know, something that's hysterical. And I've said this a few times. I think you actually said it on the radio. I love it. I love catching people who never listen to another language in music, but are jamming out, and they don't know the lyrics. They don't know what they're saying. They don't know what they mean, but are trying to get the lyrics right and just singing at the top of their lungs to, you know, BTS, you know, Korean K-pop, and they are just going for it. And I'm like, you are validating right now the importance and the okayness of having non-English language music, that you can get behind it. And that needs to be seen more. It needs to be out there more. Yeah. I think that, you know, there's been a long line of us, you know, just, well, we'll have the Latin Grammys because they're not going to make it into the regular Grammys. So we have to have the Latin Grammys. And I'm like, that's great that they get a focus. But at the same time, I'm kind of like,
yeah, let's open the box, break down the barriers there. And if you really want to learn more about, you know, the queer community and that versus people, like really like dive into this playlist. Cause I did notice, like, you know, there's that theme of resilience that is in a lot of the songs there. Like, I think the one that even kicked off the playlist when I was first looking at it was Give Love This Christmas by Travis Austin.
Yeah.
And, you know, it sounds like, you know, in some of those songs, there's just a lot of maybe pain, or that idea of that maybe fear of being lonely at Christmas or being on your own. And that's something that, you know, a lot of people within the community, it's a reality for. And so I think you can really learn through the lyrics and the writing and the storytelling that the musicians are doing, the artists are doing. Silent Night, Rosemary Joaquin. Yeah, that's beautiful. It's a beautiful song.
She is, well, just an incredible talent. And again, you know, when you have someone take a song that we have burned into our memories and into our minds, what Silent Night will sound like. And I don't know if you've checked out the Riotron version of Silent Night, Riotron and Goldhouse. Just recently played it on the Out Loud radio show. It is wild. Like, it will spin your head on what Silent Night can sound like. It is yeah, you need to, he's out of Winnipeg, Manitoba. And what a great version of it. But Rosemary's is, again, such a great vehicle to showcase the talent and the ability to convey emotion through music.
Sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep.
Unbelievable. And I think that a lot of the times, a lot of artists are kind of second guessed because the music they want to make themselves isn't necessarily something that showcases them to vocally or emotionally, because they're trying to make sure that they are steering into an industry that's going to play them, that's going to playlist them, that's going to give them some airtime, that's going to give them some space. And a lot of times that means creating and crafting music in a different way than just letting it out. And then you get to a rendition like Silent Night, where you don't have to stay within the boundaries. You can stay within your own boundaries of what you want to create for that song, but people know that song, and then you just kind of go for it. It's a little bit like how everybody tries to one-up themselves with the national anthem, the American national anthem, because everybody wants to put their spin on it. But in a case like this, the intersectionality of experience that's behind there, and you mentioned Travi, which is, you know, even more layered as an artist too. And listen, if you ever get a chance to kind of like hang, chat, talk with Travi, he's incredible, and he's just such a phenomenal person. But that intersectionality of experience changes the dynamic of what you're delivering, and suddenly, holiday music isn't just holiday music. It's coming from so many different places. And the folks who need it, you know, there are young Black men out there who have been, you know, left out of their families, who also have on their heads like what Black should be like as a Black man. And then suddenly you have this very attractive, very fit, you know, bro, Travi, you know, he's a guy's guy, he's fun, and, you know, everything like that, coming along and being so vulnerable with himself, his sexuality. And that's super important for young Black men to be able to see themselves represented as, right? That they can be all these different things.
The coldest winter nights can be so lonely. You're losing all the fights, but keep on going. Burn the embers bright for those who only wish they could be here this Christmas Eve. We're hanging all the lights, but something's missing. The fire's burning bright.
Is Travi Canadian or?
He is American, unfortunately. I would love him to be Canadian, but we're going to get him to Canada. I swear, I'm going to will it into existence.
What other ones like really jump out at you, or that you've really maybe connected with the artist, or
so I will say for myself, some of the folks who are on here vocally, Tyler James Bellinger is just incredible. Jack Finn is, I'm sorry, just wildly talented. Jack Finn is a trans artist, trans man, and regularly the music is on point. Jack did Jingle Bell Rock, and it's on the playlist. I just think Jack is phenomenal. I just think that, you know, these are people that don't ever get represented. They don't ever get seen, or it's only seen in a very specific way.
Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bells swing and jingle bells ring. Snowing and blowing up bushels of fun. Now the jingle hop has begun. Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bells chime in jingle bell time. Dancing and prancing.
Jack's having fun. Jingle Bell Rock. Jack's not trying to, you know, wave a flag of representation, but by just embracing it and being himself is waving a flag. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's so important to be able to look at folks like that. You know, Hayden Joseph, I mean, country music is, there's a lot of talk about country music these days, a lot of talk.
Let's talk.
You know, TJ Osborne and the Kiss at the Country Music Awards, and how that was, I'm like, oh my God, everybody does that when they win an award. They kiss their significant other. What is happening here right now? But it's because it's country music. Then you have Hayden Joseph on the list, who's, you know, he's got Last Christmas. I'm in a pool of, it's a competition of how long you can go without actually hearing a version of Last Christmas before Christmas hits. It's really difficult for me. I have had to dodge a few times. But you know, it's a song that we know and came to us really first. I think it gained prominence in pop music with George Michael. And you know, it has feet in the queer community.
Last Christmas I gave you my heart, but the very next day you gave it away. This year, to save me from tears, I'll give it to someone special. Once bitten and twice shy, I keep my distance, but you still catch my eye.
But yeah, there's so many on the list. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I mean, Spence Paul, that vocal on Spence Paul's Christmas Eve is out of this world. It's, you know, I just think, oh my God, how awesome is it that there's two sides of the coin here. There's folks who have had bad experiences and turning them into really powerful, moving moments that other people can kind of gravitate towards, and folks who have had good experiences and sharing them through music to let others know that, you know what, you may be down. There may be moments during the holidays where you're not feeling the best, you're not feeling the safest, you're not feeling the most love, but we're here and you can see yourself in this song and in my music. And I think that how great is that for a community to have that.
It was really an emotional song, wasn't it? Now I'm just thinking, because I listened to so many of them, but I remember that one as being quite sort of emotional and almost haunting a little bit.
The Spence Paul?
Yeah, the Spence Paul Christmas Eve song.
And the vocal on it is incredible.
It's getting late, I should get going. The fire's burning low anyway, and I bet they're wondering where I've been. But you know that I would if you asked me to stay. So when my daddy calls, 'cause he's putting together my plate.
You know, and it is quite vulnerable. It really comes from somewhere, and it's coming from somewhere, and the emotion just translates across. And you don't have to be, I mean, most people get into the holiday season and they're either hurried or trying to make sure that they've spent all their money or got everything and everything's wrapped and whatnot, and it's chaos and whatnot. But, you know, cutting through all of that and hearing a vocal like that delivered like that is kind of like, it stops you in your tracks a bit. Especially if you're somebody like me who really like, I like to sit down and just kind of just imagine what their story is through that song. And that's, yeah, it's one of the ones that are on the list that I'm just kind of like, wow. If you know nothing again, you have this in your arsenal that you need to be proud of, because it just sounds gorgeous.
I think I'm always searching at Christmas time, you know, at the holiday time for a song like that is like, and usually it is from the whole Holy Nights, or there's a few where they just like the vocals just rapture you, the pitch and the tone and all of that, and then it just makes you so emotional about the holiday season. Like it makes you feel that, you know, that you just want to sit in a, you know, quiet room with your Christmas tree lit up or your candles or whatever, and just like, you know, just kind of succumb to that song. And yeah, so I feel like that one will be on the playlist for this year.
there's a lot of, and there's ones that have just came out that just literally landed even today, that again, just a backhand roundhouse kick to the head where it's like, wow, good on you for really getting in there. And I think sometimes too, it's like the artists, you know, their interpretation, I think they just really get it because it comes from a place of, you know, just, again, that intersectionality of emotion, having so many different layers to the stories that they've experienced. And most of us, I would say, even if we are in the LGBT community, but if you're privileged, I mean, like myself, who's, you know, I would say that there's definitely times where I was not passable, but I knew that I could kind of like put some things on, some airs on to kind of get myself through some things. But, you know, when you are cisgender and you're white and you're very fortunate to, you know, go through things, I mean, we don't have those same stories and they don't necessarily come out and they don't resonate with us until we're a little bit older and we think about what we didn't have. Great example of that is when you parallel it with, you know, thinking about the high school experience and young love, how I've never had, and I saw this on TikTok recently, a young man who was on there and he says that he doesn't know how to date because he didn't have the experience of being funneling, you know, being at a party, thinking someone's cute. All of a sudden there's like people are trying to get them together and there's a whole hand holding thing. And suddenly they're kind of dating, maybe not dating. And that's that whole innocent kind of like first love thing. So many of us didn't have that. Or if we did, it wasn't authentic. It wasn't real. That, you know, there's people, we take it for granted sometimes that everybody's had that same kind of experience or isn't going through something different or having emotions that are kind of resurfacing. That, you know, you have to think about where some of these songs come from and the emotion that's kind of put into it. And when it's raw and when it's haunting, it's coming from somewhere. I mean, you know?
Yeah. And listening to it, you can really tell when someone is kind of digging deep in themselves and singing like from here versus just humming along in tune or something like that. There's a point I wanted to make and now I forget it.
Granted, some of them just want to have some fun too, and they're having a good old time with it, which is awesome as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, you have to think of your point now. Was it about like experiences and taking for granted? Because
it was
that parallel.
That whole point about the young love thing is so, it's something that I mean, so many people need to understand and need to realize that, you know, it as you know, I'm in 4 days, I will be 53.
It's number, baby.
I look back at that and I say, what would have been different now? Who would I be if I had the ability to have those same experiences without fear and just be the awkward geek and teen that I was? You know, I was a train wreck, but I was a train wreck for so many other different reasons that if you had removed some of that wreckage, who would I be? What would I be like? Where would I have gone? What directions would I have gone in? And you know, my husband and I have never been people that walk down the street holding hands together because we were never ever comfortable, ever felt comfortable to do it.
Yeah.
And that's something that's taken from us, an experience that's taken from us that, yeah, we could go and do it and just not give a shit. But we also have to get ourselves in the mindset that
layers of guarded, right? Is that still there? Like, would you say now you still wouldn't walk down the street holding hands?
Or it's automatic that we wouldn't. I think that it's just something that's
behavior.
Yeah, I think so, right? And now, you know, as we're older and whatnot, we don't need to do that to demonstrate anything. And I think that's as you get older, but there is a comfort there when you see other people have those interactions, you kind of go, I wonder what that's like. I wonder what that feeling is like to just naturally do it rather than naturally not do it. Yeah. It is something that it's very hard to, I think, explain to folks who have never been in that situation before. I think the only thing I can think of is when, you think about safety, and you think of it from a safety. When a woman walks into a space and does not feel safe because of how things are presented, how the language that's in there. When somebody who's a person of color walks into a space and doesn't feel like they belong or that they're going to be as welcome. I think that's the only way to kind of equate it. But there's always, it's like, what would that feel like? And I feel I get a lot of that from the music, I think, because I think about how many of these artists maybe during the holiday seasons haven't been able to have their significant other with family, because that's just going to cause too much upheaval. They may not have been able to even acknowledge they had a significant other, or they wanted to have their family to their place, but only certain families going to come. So we can't even be bothered to invite X, Y, and Z because they're not going to come anyway. And it's just going to be a big, there's a lot that's wrapped up.
I know families with trans children who, the parents are divorced, and so the child's splitting time between and seeing grandparents who they haven't been able to tell them yet about the actual transition, in that they can't share their name and their pronouns to the people. It's like, oh, the look has changed and I don't quite get it, but they don't actually understand, or they're not, so that whole time you're there, you're not being yourself. It's not real. You're under that kind of, scrutiny.
I think with the holidays too, there's always this constant expectation that people need to get together and you need to spend time with family. But I think the key thing is that you spend time with the people that you feel is going to be the most positive for your holidays. And just December, and even I would say December more than January, but just the winter in general is such a crappy time of the year in general. Everyone's, a lot of folks have seasonal affective disorder. It's a tough year all around. But it's also a really great time for reflecting. And I think that's key, is that, this time of the year, everyone's sitting and they're looking back at their year being like, what did I do? What didn't I do? What do I regret doing? What do I wish I did? Things like that. And with artists and musicians, and this is my personal favorite part about a lot of Christmas music, is that usually that's when they start talking about those things as well. They're performing and singing their hearts out because they're thinking those things, and they're like, okay, let me air this out in a healthy manner. And that's usually through music. So you get to hear that and feel that.
The song by Darren, What's Christmas Anyway? That kind of speaks to that, doesn't it, Kenny?
Yes.
And Isaac,
Very much so. And that's a great example of an artist who has taken, the idea of holiday music to craft it in a way that really represents what I would call lost experience, missing out on these experiences that we frame what the holidays look like. And, it's kind of like, the bride experience in a sense. There's a lot of images of what, your wedding day will be like. And you really want it to be like all of those things that has been laid out for you. And the holidays are very much like that. It's all about, here are the people coming home and everybody's so happy and they're all there and it's warm and there's great food and there's eggnog, whatever is happening. It just seems to, it's something that we all covet, that we all want, that we want to experience, but we don't all get that picture, that perfect picture. And I really feel that this isn't like that particular song is an artist who's kind of talking about that. There are those missed moments, those missed experience that they didn't get a chance to have and want so badly to have them and wish that they had.
Yeah. So stop whining if your aunt makes a bone and rolled and doesn't do the full turkey. Those people have bigger problems than cranberry sauce versus
because you're getting ham, not turkey this season doesn't mean beggars can't be choosers.
But I think that we are such a media-driven society in North America, especially, that we lay it out as to what you should want the holidays to look like. Here's the picture perfect holidays, and it doesn't equate the same way for everyone, and not everybody necessarily wants it. But I think when you're young, I think you really do want some of those experiences because they're presented in a way that says this is what you should want.
Yeah.
And when you have friends who do get it, you feel that you want it too. And when you don't have it, and it could just be, something as simple as your parents are going through a divorce, they could be splitting up, half, kid brothers and sisters, and we're moving around, and, it's all out of joint. But I think when you're just yourself and you just want it, and, because of who you are, that denies you it. I think that there's a lot of resentment and hurt and just pain that goes into that because you didn't do anything to be denied it, if that it makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, no, makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you didn't do anything, you just were. And because of that, you either had to hold it back, or if you did go forward, just it may have moved it off the rails. And that's really sad, because then we turn around and put you in a movie theater and on a giant screen say, this is what you should really be having at this moment in time. And it's just another, it's like Instagram. Even at my age, I don't necessarily want to see, I want to see my 50. I want to see my 50, not the 50 who's paid to look a certain way. I don't need that 50. I need the real 50.
They're all catfishing, right? It's all like,
oh goodness.
Lord, the amount of bare chests that are out there that you just keep coming up in a feed. I'm like, what is happening and why? Why is this happening?
I think
show me me.
I think the key thing when we think of like cookie cutter Christmases is I always go back to like Hallmark Christmas movies. And I remember hearing on the radio, Zendaya is planning on directing a film about two Black women that's centered around Christmas and is supposed to be kind of like a Hallmark Christmas movie, and is just supposed to be like a classic love story. And it's not supposed to be focused on anything race or sexuality or anything like that. It's just supposed to be like a classic Christmas movie so people can see themselves represented.
I had a conversation the other day with someone about the new movie, Single All the Way. And they were like, oh, I didn't really like it. I thought it was just too much, too over the top or whatnot. And I was just like, I don't think you're really the target audience for that movie. And I said, I think what that movie's accomplishing is showing two men, one who's white and one who's Black, to an interracial relationship, same relationship. And it's the same thing we would get with other movies. It's just that we're showing their version of it. And that's important. And you are not part of that version. So I understand that maybe you don't get it. Yeah. And I'm like, but you're not really the audience.
Yeah, and it's not theirs to get is the key part, is that they don't have to, it's not has to be content that they have to consume. It's, for the people who need that representation and just need a easy film to sit and watch and not have to sit and think about, systematic racism or trauma or homophobia and things like that. And
that's what I said, even in the LGBT community, we want bad fluff. We are okay with bad fluff, but we want it to be good bad fluff. I think that's what this is. It's kind of like, it is what it is.
What did you think about then when I think about the Christmas drama? Last year, I think it was like probably one of the first LGBTQ sort of mainstream Christmas movies, but it has Dan Levy as a secondary character in it. And did you see that one where a lesbian couple and then they've got to go home, but she hasn't told her family? It has Kirsten, Twilight.
Yes.
Yeah,
Googling it right now because I can't remember the name of it.
Have you seen that? Like, well, how did that read? What did you think of that movie? It's very.
I thought it was a little heavy. I thought it was a little heavy-handed with tropes. I think that sometimes what happens is, and I don't know who wrote the movie, and I don't know who produced or directed the movie, but I happen to think that it wasn't a lesbian. I think it probably wasn't. Just simply because I don't think people making a movie, a same-sex romantic, Christmas holiday movie for the sake of having one out there doesn't really do anybody any favors other than to say that there's one out there. It's a bit of a box tick. And I don't know if I don't think anybody went in to make a movie like that and say it's going to be a box tick. I think that they go in, but then people get into play and, I think it was Hulu. We have no idea who's behind the scenes and what they think is going to work better, which is probably somebody who's not part of the community or part of a relationship like that. And I think that there was stuff that was in there that was good. And I think that there was stuff that was in there that a lot of, I think, women who are, in same-sex relationships would kind of go like, oh, really? We went that route? And I think that,
it would be disappointing. I think like the highlight for me was Dan Levy's character as the friend stepping in, and some of their words were quite poignant on, how to be a good friend and how to, like, I actually that was probably what jumped out at me the most that I liked. Show notes.
We'll do another one. We'll do another one of these.
There we go.
Movies.
Cue movie review.
Exactly. And then we've got a book club. We're going to have to get all over that as well. So there we go. There's so much
Definitely
great
be chatting
out there, right? Like it is nice. But
there's so much more than there ever has been. And and some folks are really getting it right and doing it well. And like I said, sometimes it comes along where it feels like a bit like a box tick. And I think that's going to happen, the engines of film or music or whatever, when they get involved, when dollar signs take over, who knows what's coming out in the end. Yeah. But, when in indie film and independent, there's so much good TV is what I will say. Movies are still striving in different ways to kind of get some things right, but TV, episodic TVs, especially short seasons, like 10 episodes. I mean, we all love a good long season, but we don't need all the filler. But, some of them are doing it really well. And it's great that I always think about kids. I always think about what I didn't have. And I think that if you're growing up queer today, you have so much more to just grab a hold of and see yourself in. And I think that is super important. And I just don't know if people really, truly understand the weight of it sometimes.
Visibility and mirrors, it's so powerful. And even if you don't have an accepting household where they might not put it on their television or whatever, if you have access, to YouTube or that, and your laptop, you can really find those mirrors and that visibility and the stories that you need to know that you're not alone. And yeah, I think it's so important. And I really love the playlist. I really hope that for cis people that are listening, they'll even, just pull even a few of the songs out and incorporate them into their playlist this holiday.
They really need to listen to Peter Neep's Happy Holidays. He's a Cyn artist. I struggle with the language with it. I keep trying to practice more and more. And it's a 5-song EP that he's put out called Happy Holidays. Songs called Happy Holidays, video Happy Holidays. And he's just alive in it. And he's just having so much again, knowing the story of his struggles and whatnot, it's full of joy and full of hope, but it comes from a place that, he's had some ugliness, and he's just been able to just bring it out in just such a positive way. I have a story for you. I don't know if you want to use this or not, but I have a story for you because it comes back to music in this playlist. So I spend a lot of time on the internet, probably far too much. And I try to zoom in and out of a lot of different groups. And I'm part of different groups. Like I'm part of a queer podcast group on Facebook and different, radio shows and things like that. And I got into I wouldn't call it a tete-a-tete. I would call it maybe a debate with somebody else who's part of radio. And because I was talking about the holiday so there's the holiday playlist, and I'm also putting together an album sort of podcast episode of holiday music so that it's not necessarily listening to me talk. It's all of the artists and they're doing their introductions and things, and it can play just like an album. And of course, I'm doing the radio show, the holiday, version of radio show. And it became a conversation as to why do you need that? And it was this interesting conversation back and forth, trying to explain to someone who's never saw the need for there to be a queer-centric focus of music. And I, also said, would you, if would you ever see yourself doing an entire show dedicated to women? He's like, well, of course, yes, International Women's Day. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, but would you do that outside of International Women's Day? He's like, well, yeah, that happens all the time. I was like, exactly, but why? He's like, well, because there's a lot of female artists. And I'm like, exactly. And I'm like, so don't you think that women who are listening to that really like the fact that they get to hear themselves in other women and relate to their stories? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, that's the same thing with anybody from the LGBT community. And like, they don't see themselves represented, because if you listen to, it could be a rock song, it could be a country song, most of the time it's, opposite pronouns, or it's talking about something, an experience that we never ever had or couldn't ever have, and maybe still can't have. And it was this back and forth, but it was a struggle to get them to see the difference, because, with a woman, it was a visibility thing. Same thing with people of color, they could understand. But from a sexuality standpoint, it became more about, well, but music's music. It should be all about the music, not necessarily about who the person, is interested in. And I'm like, it was such a struggle, because I'm like, from a storytelling standpoint, you're negating so many stories and so many songs that are out there and so many experiences, but they just couldn't see. And I mean, it ended with like, to each their own. And I was kind of like, I can't.
Yeah, the point just right over the head.
Yeah. And I was just like, that just shows that you can be in and doing this and being around people and just realize how short-sighted some folks are. And I hope that changes over time. And I hope that whatever we're doing here and doing regularly helps to change that. But I was like, wow.
And it's funny because like the importance of holding space is so important. It's so important. And I think, having these playlists, sure, it'd be wonderful if we got to a day where maybe on a holiday album, mixed album of 20 songs, you had 5, queer musicians and 5 Black and 4 white, and, and like you made it actually more diverse. But we're not there yet. Even on your playlist, like how many of those artists are mainstream? There's Sia, but a lot of them struggle probably to like get recognition on the billboards, on the, that mainstream radio play. And so that's exactly why you need to have these kind of playlists and that. So, and even to make it stand apart, so people actually like devote that time to go, let me just check it out and see what's there for me. And, I don't know. It's a funny story though. Like not even a funny story, but I have a family member, a grandparent in Ontario, and, they don't understand why we do the work that we do at Simply Good Form. And it's kind of like, so, we know a few trans people that they've got kids that are trans and they're fine. Like they're just fine. So, your child, your kiddo transitions and you just need to start a company. And, how are the other 2 doing? Like the other 2 kids, like as if and I'm like, wow, we don't do this because of just one person, but maybe the one person made our reality change to realize there's a whole population out there that are erased and marginalized, and people are walking all over them. And, that's why we do it. And that's why, for me as a cis person, I just think that's why we need to pay attention. And, songs like this matters, and it matters to learn where they come from and that. So, but
yeah,
you said
you're the hardest people in the world to take a step back and just listen. And not just listen and not just hear somebody talking, but listen to what they're saying and why. That's a challenge for so many of us. And really, we need to listen more and talk less, and just get the hell out of the way sometimes, and just allow other people to have space. Don't try to you know, it's not a hard lesson to learn, but it is hard to get folks to sit down and realize that they're not losing anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing being lost.
Yeah.
Oh
I think
my
I
God.
think personally that's probably one of the hardest things for a lot of people to learn is there's so many. That being said, there's a lot of people who don't want to advocate or anything like that. But for the people who do want to advocate, they want to go above and beyond. But it's learning when you need to sit down and let other people take a stand. Like that. Yeah. It's a whole other conversation.
You're not losing anything.
Exactly.
Not-
You're not all of a
you
sudden
don't
not
have
the
to
star
be-
of the show. You were never
Yeah.
the star of the show.
Yeah, exactly. You need to pass the spotlight on to someone else and focus on that issue. And then, if they need help, they'll call you in.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the martyr for every issue that comes up. So I'm
Give them,
also just
give them the ability, the space, and the tools to be able to do it, and then be there for the support when they need it.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a hard thing for people to learn and let go of. My.
yeah. Yeah.
But
That's nice.
I have to clean this space because it's a mess. But
It looks very clean back there. I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah, right. Yeah, because I'm in my daughter's bedroom, and here I'll show you. This is my. I catfished you. Ah, so funny.
Whoa! I've
I
never
know,
seen
right?
that room before. I thought you lived in a white room your entire life.
I know. I wish I had a studio that looked like that, but or like this. But anyway, there we go. The real me for a minute. I'm really excited for this one to go to air next week.
Yeah.
I'm excited too. I mean, it's always nice to be on this side of it, and I don't have to do any editing. So
That's unfortunately
It's
my
nice.
Well,
my
thanks,
my
Kenny.
weekend. But yes, no, thank you so much, Kenny, for taking the time to chat with us. It's always a pleasure.
anytime, I'm here for whatever you need.
We appreciate it. All right, enjoy the rest of your day.
Hey,
Okey-doke.
holidays.
Bye.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays.
Well, that's all the time we have today, folks. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Hey Sis.
If you have any questions you want to ask or want to join in on the conversation, email us at connect@simplygoodforum.com.
Thank you all, and remember, inclusion matters.